Welcome to the Stoic Responder Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Healy. As a special agent who spent more than 15 years conducting large-scale fraud, money laundering, and public corruption investigations, Stoic philosophy provided a mindset edge that became the foundation of my professional success. My mission today is to share those same ancient mindset lessons with you so that you can turn obstacles into opportunities and adversity into advantage. Time to muster up.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Stoic Responder Podcast. This is episode 103. The obstacle is the way. Before I get into the episode, real quick, you can go back and listen to the entire episode on Monday where I did a deep dive on upcoming changes to the podcast and et cetera, et cetera. I'll give you a quick summary. Go over, if you could, to the stoicresponder.substack.com between now and the end of the year and sign up for the podcast over there so that you can get the podcast in your email inbox and so that you can connect your RSS feed to the Substack so that you can continue to receive the podcast in Apple, iTunes, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I'm going to be shifting everything over to Substack and focusing on audio only is because I've spent 5 months or so going over metrics, going over analytics, social media metrics on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Threads, Facebook, all of that stuff. And I have been trying to identify and find where my audience is and where I am finding my audience and where they're most importantly consuming the podcast. And what I've discovered is my audience, again, this is a very niche podcast with a niche topic. It's philosophy for first responders. What I found is that people aren't, finding me from YouTube videos or from Instagram or anything like that. Most people are finding me because they're listening to podcasts from an audio format. And so if I'm going to produce a free podcast, what makes the most sense for me is to use a free platform to host it. And that's what Substack provides. I'm currently paying a platform to host my podcast. And rather than continue to pay and have a separate Substack, I'm just going to move everything to Substack. I'm going to eliminate the video. I'm going to eliminate the YouTube Shorts, YouTube, Instagram, any of that stuff that isn't capturing audience. And I'm going to focus entirely on producing a high quality and good audio product on a platform that doesn't cost me anything. And so we're going to be making that transition probably over the Christmas break that I'm going to take at the end of December. But if you could go on to the stoicresponder.substack.com between now and then, the stoicresponder.substack.com, and sign up over there. It'll make sure you don't miss any episodes. It'll make sure that you get to continue to listen as I make that transition because it may screw up the feeds and other stuff. And if you're one of the handful of people who watches these videos on YouTube instead of just listening to the audio over there, I appreciate it. Sorry, I'm not going to be smiling and recording to the camera anymore. I apologize. You'll just have to deal with the dulcet sounds of my wonderful voice instead. So carrying on with today's episode, the obstacle is the way. So those of you who are familiar with Ryan Holiday, as well you should be if you're into Stoicism, he is a kind of a monster in the space right now. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that he's like the big guy in the space who really popularized Stoicism to a modern audience. He's written a number of books. If I'm just looking at my bookshelf right now, I have like 6 or 7 of his books on my bookshelf right now. I don't know how many he's written, maybe 10 about Stoicism and the Stoics. And all of them are excellent. He does a great job of taking this ancient philosophy and modernizing it and making it accessible for everyone. And interesting guy and a interesting modern day Stoic. And one thing that he is super, I would say that he seems to be a big fan, as many of us are, of Marcus Aurelius in particular. But he's one of those guys who really focuses on, 1 or 2 or 3 quotes and says, I'm going to turn that into an entire dissertation, entire book about the piece of wisdom that he's sharing. Now, one of these great quotes that he turned into a book is this one by Marcus Aurelius. Our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or dispositions because we can accommodate and adapt. The mind adapts and converts to its own purpose the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That quote the impediment to action advances action, what stands in the way becomes the way, from Marcus Aurelius. That became the foundation for his book, for Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way. And in the book, The Obstacle is the Way, the timeless art of turning trials into triumph, which I would highly, highly encourage you to pick up if you like this stuff, if you're enjoying Stoicism. Holiday explores that quote and suggests that obstacles and challenges are not impediments to success, but rather become the path to it. And I love this quote for those same reasons. I've kind of really identified with this in my career, especially when, I had to blow the whistle on my special agent in charge, when I had to go in front of a grand jury, in front of a jury and testify in open court about things that I saw him do. That felt like a major obstacle, but in a lot of ways that opened the door to a different path for me that created the career that I was lucky to have. And so he explores this quote and this sort of attitude in this book. And he reveres meditations. He considers it the definitive text on self-discipline, on personal ethics, on humility, on self-actualization, on strength. But of all that advice in its pages, it's that summary of that quote that he expanded into a full-length book. Not only that, but he believes in that concept so much that he took that quote, not the quote itself, but his synthesis of it, the obstacle is the way, and actually had it tattooed on his arm. So this is interesting because as a guy who has tattoos, I have quite a few of them. The Stoics were renowned for writing down and carrying around their favorite maxims, right? They did something similar. They would remind themselves to practice their philosophy daily by writing notes to themselves, putting it in their pocket, carrying it around with them, right? Holiday's tattoo serves that same purpose. It signifies the principles of embracing obstacles, the difficulties with resilience and fortitude. Rather than seeing adversity as something that can be avoided or overcome, looking at that tattoo encourages him to see obstacles as opportunities for growth, learning, and personal development. Think about all the obstacles you face on a daily basis, that you bump into on a daily basis, and having that looking down to I don't know where his tattoo is, but it's on his arm somewhere. Let's say you're looking down to your left arm and you see the obstacle is the way. It just reminds you in that moment that this isn't something that has to stop me. This can be something that advances me, just in a different direction, right? You see, Stoicism is intended as an operating manual for life. It's supposed to remind us that we're facing and overcoming obstacles, not just as a means to an end, but as a way to personal and professional transformation, right? Like overcoming the things is often the point of life. Life is a challenging and difficult, and it's a mountain to climb. And we all have to climb this mountain to get to the end of it, which is not necessarily a reward in its own right. It depends on I'm saying this as a person of faith. I have a feeling of what the reward will be, but assuming you have a different faith tradition or none at all, sometimes it just feels like you're just pushing the boulder up that hill. Stoicism is intended to remind us that pushing the boulder up the hill is a way to personal and professional transformation. That's what makes you better, right? It reminds us that adversity actually reveals our character. It forges our resilience. It leads us to newfound strength and wisdom, if we're wise enough to see it, not as an obstacle, but as the opportunity that it is, right? Like we go to the gym, we lift weights, and over time we get to lift heavier weights because we have trained ourselves to overcome the adversity of that lighter weight. And we have grown stronger and more resolute in the act of again and again and again, bench pressing 155, then 165, then 185, then all of a sudden it's 225 and on, that over time under tension creates growth. The same is true of the obstacles that you face on a daily basis. So Holiday gets that. He writes an entire book about that one Marcus Aurelius quote called The Obstacle is the Way, which I would highly recommend you pick up. He believes in it so much that he tattoos it on his arm, so he has a maxim that he can refer to whenever he's struggling or facing things that are an obstacle. He can remind himself, this is an opportunity for growth. This is an opportunity to overcome adversity. I would ask you, what is your personal maxim? What do you believe so strongly in? Maybe it's a quote from the Stoics, maybe it's something else. What do you believe so strongly in that you could place that on a piece of your body and refer to it and use it as an operating maxim, as a daily reminder, right? I have a couple of those. I've got, like I said, I got like 7 or 8 tattoos, but on my wrist, I have the festina lente symbol, I think we've talked about it on the podcast, but festina lente was from the Emperor Augustus. It means make haste slowly. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. If you've heard of that from the SEAL teams or from SWAT guys from law enforcement, often adopt that same attitude. Festina lente means that. It means like make haste slowly is literally what it means. It means like operate smoothly. Don't like be in a hurry. Don't rush. We're never in a hurry to rush to our deaths, as one of my buddies used to say when we would prep for a search warrant. We're never in a hurry to rush to our deaths. We operate smoothly, right? So that's a reminder to me to do things right the first time, to be smooth in how you operate, because slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I have on my arm, I have the words from the National Law Enforcement Memorial, "In valor there is hope." That's from the Roman senator Tacitus. He's a senator, he's a historian. I love that. Valor means courage. And if you've ever been to the Law Enforcement Memorial, if you've ever been for Police Week, which I highly encourage you to do if you've never been, it's incredible. But that's written into the marble at the Law Enforcement Memorial. In valor, there is hope. Why? What does that mean? In valor, there's hope and courage. People displaying incredible acts of selfless courage give hope to the rest of us, right? And that's what all those names, those 26,000 some names on that wall represent, are people who gave their last full measure for their communities, for the people that they serve. They had incredible courage and valor to do a job that could lead to their death, that could cause them to lose their lives, and they did it anyway. I think that's something worth honoring. And throughout my law enforcement career, having that on my arm, something I can look to and say, in valor there is hope. Be courageous, in other words. Do things that are courageous, and you will inspire that from others. That's a maxim that means a lot to me. And then the third one I have, I need a lot of reminding. The third one I have is on my calf. After I did my first Ironman, I got an Ironman tattoo, like a lot of people do. My calf, that Ironman symbol, the triathlon, the red, they call it the M dot. It's like a red M with a circle above it. Stands for Ironman. And I got the word Invictus in script across it. And Invictus, of course, means unconquered. It's Latin for unconquered. If you've seen the movie Invictus with, I think it's Morgan Freeman and Matt Damon are in it. It's about, South Africa after the end of apartheid and Nelson Mandela being released from prison and all this stuff. And, there's a whole movie called Invictus that you can look up. And it's based around a poem by William Ernest Henley, who is a Stoic poet from Victorian era England. And he wrote that poem about, through the circumstance finds me and shall find me unafraid. In other words, life is going to throw a lot of horrible things at you, but I will remain bloody but unbowed. I will be smacked over the head, but I will carry on. To me, that's what doing an Ironman was. It was remaining, you may be bloody, but you're unbowed. It's about crossing that finish line. It's about getting where you need to go. It's about building the resilience to carry on no matter what the life or the day throws at you. That particular day, my first Ironman, had the highest DNF rate, that's a did not finish rate, of any Ironman race in the 40-year history of the event, because it was so damn hot. I showed up on race day. It was like real field temperature in Houston. The Woodlands that day was like 115. People were falling off left and right. This is my first full Ironman. And I gutted it out and finished. And, was among the one of the smallest finishing fields in Ironman history. And that mattered to me. That's proved something to me. As I was going through that, I was also going through, that was, exactly the time when I was testifying against my boss in court. And I was going through all of that stuff of blowing the whistle, and proving something to myself on that course reminded me of what I was capable of. It reminded me that I could take an obstacle like what I was facing at work and turn it into an opportunity to do something that I never thought I could do, like finish an Ironman, right? And that reminder, Invictus, you are unbroken. You are unconquered. You will not be broken. They can beat you up. They can throw whatever they want at you, but you're going to keep putting one foot in front of the other until you cross that finish line. That's a powerful reminder to me of what I'm capable of when my back's against the wall, when things seem hopeless, when things seem grim. So all that to say, we all have our personal maxims. The Stoics did too. The modern day Stoics, like a Ryan Holiday, or a lesser modern day Stoic like myself, we believe in the same thing. What do you believe in? That's the question I have for you today. So write down, so take this as your journal prompt. Write down, you don't have to get this tattooed on you, but write down a personal maxim and place it in a spot where you can read it as a daily reminder of your guiding principles. Again, for me, make haste slowly, do things right the first time. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. In valor, there is hope. Act courageously. Whatever you do, do it with courage because you'll inspire those around you. And remember, you are unconquered. You can do hard things. You can put one foot in front of the other. You can keep going forward, even when you're bloodied, even when you're beat up, even when you don't want to, even when your back is against the wall, even when people are out to get you or the circumstances are challenging. Keep pushing onward, keep pushing forward. I need those lessons every day, so I got them tattooed on my skin. Ryan Holiday needs to know every single day that the obstacle is the way, so he got it tattooed on his skin. I'm not saying you got to rush out and get a tattoo, but I am asking you to remind yourself on a daily basis of your guiding principles. That's what the Stoics did. All right, folks, just again, as a reminder, 2 more episodes this week, then I'll be gone until the first week of December. Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can go pick up a copy of my book, In Valor, 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you get your books. You can message me if you want to get a copy of that for Christmas. If you want a signed copy, shoot me a message. Connect with me. I can make that happen as well. I love sending out signed copies to people, so feel free to reach out if that's something you're interested in getting for yourself or for someone else. And just a reminder, please go over to the Substack channel, the stoicresponder.substack.com. Sign up over there so that when I make the transition at the end of the year and go fully over to Substack, you are still getting the podcast. You don't miss anything. So completely free. It's just a way for me to deliver this podcast in a more convenient way and to, do it in a more budget-friendly way for myself as I'm producing a free podcast. So sign up at the stoicresponder.substack.com. Folks, thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for tuning in. 2 more episodes, and then I'll send you on your way for the Thanksgiving break. Until then, you are out of roll.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, rate, and share this podcast so that we can spread the benefits of Stoicism to other first responders. It will only take you a few moments, but it can help us tremendously. Until next time, out of roll.